Hello, weary traveler. Welcome back to the Candlelit Journal. Tonight, we return to the Crossroads Inn, where two ancient roads meet and travelers pause to rest before continuing their journeys. Spring has come to the Crossroads, the kind of late spring that smells of apple blossoms and fresh-turned earth, when the days grow long and golden and the world feels full of possibility. In the pages ahead, our innkeeper recounts an extraordinary week, one in which the inn played host to a wedding party, traveling to a ceremony in a nearby village. Two families who have never met, a bride from the eastern coast and a groom from the western frontier, and all the joy and anxiety and small disasters that accompany such occasions. So settle in. Let the fire crackle softly, let the candle burn low. And let me share with you another entry from the Candlelit Journal of a Crossroads innkeeper.
The 17th day of May. There is something about late spring that makes the world feel newly made. The apple trees behind the inn have burst into bloom this week, their branches heavy with blossoms so white they seem to glow in the evening light. The kitchen garden has finally shaken off the last memory of frost, and I've spent my mornings on my knees in the dark earth, planting the seeds I saved from last year's harvest. Tomatoes and beans, squash and herbs, the quiet architecture of meals not yet imagined. The roads have been busy these past days. The warming weather always brings travelers out of wherever they have been sheltering, eager to resume journeys postponed by winter's grip. I have seen merchants heading east with wagons of spring wool, pilgrims walking north toward the mountain shrines, homesteaders venturing west with hope shining in their eyes. The Crossroads has been alive with movement, with possibility, with all the small dramas of human life playing out against the backdrop of my ancient oak tree. But nothing could have prepared me for the travelers who arrived this afternoon. It began, as so many things do here, with the sound of horses on the road. Not the single horse of a lone traveler or the plodding oxen of a merchant's cart, but the rhythmic thunder of multiple hooves, accompanied by the creak of wagon wheels and the unmistakable sound of human voices. Many voices, talking and laughing and calling out to one another across the spring air. I stepped out onto the porch to see what approached, wiping flour from my hands onto my apron, and found myself watching what can only be described as a procession. At the front rode a young man on a chestnut mare, his clothing simple but well made, the sort of practical garments a craftsman might wear when he wishes to look respectable without appearing to reach above his station. He sat somewhat awkwardly in the saddle, as if riding were not his natural element, and his face bore an expression I have learned to recognize over my years as an innkeeper, the particular blend of joy and terror that accompanies life-changing events. Behind him came a wagon, painted in cheerful colors that had faded from long travel, pulled by two patient draft horses. In the wagon sat three women, one elderly, wrapped in a patchwork shawl despite the warmth of the day, one middle-aged, with the weathered hands and strong arms of someone accustomed to hard work, and one young, perhaps 18 or 19, with dark hair braided with ribbons and a face that seemed to shift between excitement and nervousness with each passing moment. A second wagon followed, this one more elegant, its sides polished to a shine that suggested coastal craftsmanship. An older woman drove this wagon with the confident hands of someone who has handled horses all her life. And beside her sat a boy of perhaps 12 or 13, all gangly limbs and restless energy. In the back of this wagon, I caught glimpses of wooden chests and wrapped bundles, the sort of carefully packed cargo that suggests a journey of importance. And behind them all came two more riders, a man on horseback, his clothing marking him as someone of modest means, but considerable dignity, and a woman on a gray mare, her posture stiff with what I would later learn was a mixture of exhaustion and anxiety. The young man at the front spotted me standing on the porch and raised a hand in greeting. "Is this the Crossroads Inn?" he called out, his voice carrying clearly across the spring air. "The one they say sits where the roads meet?" "It is," I replied, stepping forward to meet them. "And you are welcome here, all of you, though I confess I was not expecting such a large party. Are you traveling together?" The young man's face broke into a smile that transformed his anxious features into something approaching radiance. "We are," he said, swinging down from his saddle with more enthusiasm than grace. "We are a wedding party, innkeeper. My name is Tobias, and in 3 days' time I am to be married in the village of Millbrook, half a day's journey from here. This," he gestured at the procession behind him, "is my family, and the family of my bride. We have been traveling for nearly a week, and we were told that your inn would be the perfect place to rest before the final leg of our journey." I felt my heart warm at his words. In all my years keeping this inn, I have hosted many travelers, merchants and pilgrims, soldiers and scholars, those fleeing something and those seeking something, the lost and the found and the somewhere in between. But a wedding party was something new, something that carried its own particular energy, its own blend of joy and anxiety and hope. "Then you are doubly welcome," I said. "A wedding is cause for celebration, and I am honored that you would choose to rest here on your journey toward it. How many are you in total?" The counting that followed was somewhat chaotic, as members of the party called out from various positions in the procession. When the tally was complete, I learned that I would be hosting 10 souls: the groom Tobias, his father Marcus, the man on horseback, his grandmother Burra, the elderly woman in the patchwork shawl, and Edith, just the family's longtime housekeeper, who had insisted on accompanying them. From the bride's side came Elena herself, the dark-haired young woman in the first wagon, her mother Marguerite, the stiff-backed woman on the gray mare, her younger brother Finn, the restless boy, and Rosa, the seamstress, who had been traveling with them to complete the final alterations on the wedding dress. Additionally, there was the minstrel Cedric, hired to provide music for the ceremony, and a courier named Lydia, who carried the official marriage contract from the Eastern Church. 10 souls, each with their own story, their own hopes and fears, their own reasons for being part of this journey toward matrimony. I looked at them, all these strangers who had arrived at my crossroads, and I felt the familiar stirring that always comes when new travelers appear. The sense that their stories are about to become, however briefly, entangled with my own. "Come," I said, gesturing toward the stable. "Let us get your horses settled, and then I will show you to your rooms. The common room has a fire burning, and I can have supper ready within the hour. You all look as though you could use a rest. The settling in that followed was the organized chaos that accompanies any large group arriving at an unfamiliar place. The horses were led to the stable where they drank gratefully from the trough and were rubbed down by hands that clearly knew what they were doing. Marcus, I noticed, handled the animals with the easy competence of someone who has spent his life working with them. The wagons were unloaded, chests and bundles carried up the narrow stairs to the rooms I had hastily prepared, voices calling out instructions and questions, and the occasional mild complaint. I moved through it all like a conductor through a symphony, directing traffic and answering questions and making sure that no one felt lost or overlooked. The private rooms went to the bride and her family. Elena would share with her mother Marguerite, while young Finn would have a small chamber to himself, much to his delight. The groom's family took the other private room, with Tobias, his father Marcus, and his grandmother Vera settling into the larger of the two spaces I had available. The remaining members of the party, Edith the housekeeper, Rosa the seamstress, Cedric the minstrel, and Lydia the courier, would share the common sleeping quarters, which I had partitioned with hanging cloths to provide at least the illusion of privacy. It was not an ideal arrangement, I knew. A wedding party deserved proper accommodations, private rooms with soft beds, and windows that looked out onto pleasant views. But this is what I had to offer, and I would make certain that what I offered was given with warmth and care. By the time everyone was settled, the sun had begun its slow descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold that rivaled the apple blossoms in their beauty. I had a large pot of stew simmering over the fire, a rich mixture of lamb and spring vegetables flavored with rosemary and thyme from my kitchen garden, and fresh bread cooling on the counter, its crust golden and fragrant. The common room had been arranged for the large party, tables pushed together to create one long surface where everyone could sit together, and I had lit extra candles to push back the gathering shadows. The white candle on the mantel burned steadily as it had burned since the old woman gave it to me so many years ago. I found myself watching it as I worked, as I often do, half expecting it to do something unusual. But it simply burned, patient and unwavering, a beacon in the growing dusk. The wedding party gathered for supper in ones and twos, drifting down from their rooms into various states of refreshment. Young Finn arrived first, his restless energy apparently undimmed by the long day of travel, and immediately began exploring every corner of the common room with the insatiable curiosity of youth. His mother, Marguerite, followed shortly after, her expression still carrying the tension I had noticed when she arrived, though she managed a polite smile when I offered her a cup of warm cider. The groom's family descended together, Marcus supporting his elderly mother Vera on his arm, with Tobias trailing behind them like an anxious shadow. Vera, I was pleased to see, had regained some color in her cheeks after the rest, and she surveyed the common room with bright, knowing eyes that missed nothing. "This is a good place," she said to me, her voice surprisingly strong for someone of such apparent age. "I can feel it. The Crossroads holds old magic, and this inn sits at its heart. You have chosen well, keeper." I was not entirely sure what she meant by chosen, but there was something in her tone that discouraged questions. I simply nodded and guided her to a chair near the fire, where she settled with a satisfied sigh and immediately fixed her gaze on the white candle burning on the mantel. "Ah," she said, very softly, "I see." But when I asked what she saw, she only smiled and shook her head. The bride, Elena, was the last to appear, and I confess I found myself watching for her with particular interest. She descended the narrow stairs slowly, one hand trailing along the rough wooden wall, and her face bore her an expression that seemed to encompass the entire spectrum of human emotion. Joy and fear, hope and excitement and exhaustion, all woven together into something that made her seem almost to glow from within. She wore a simple dress of blue linen, her dark hair still braided with the ribbons I had noticed earlier, and around her neck hung a pendant that caught the candlelight and threw tiny rainbows across the room. When she entered the common room and saw Tobias waiting for her, a smile broke across her face that was like the sun emerging from behind clouds. "We made it," she said, crossing to him and taking his hands in hers. "We actually made it." "Not yet," Marguerite said from her seat, her voice carrying a note of caution. "The wedding is in 3 days. A great deal can happen in 3 days." The words fell into the room like stones into still water, and I saw several members of the party exchange uneasy glances. Elena's smile faltered, and Tobias's grip on her hands tightened visibly. "Mother," Elena said, a warning edge in her voice. "I am simply being realistic," Marguerite continued. "This match was arranged very quickly, and there are still considerations that must be addressed. I do not say this to dampen anyone's spirits, only to remind us all that we must remain vigilant. I did not know the full story of this wedding, not yet, but I could sense the currents of tension that flowed beneath the surface of this gathering. Whatever considerations Marguerite referred to, they were clearly a source of ongoing conflict, and the joy of the occasion was tinged with something darker, something unresolved. It was Marcus, the groom's father, who broke the uncomfortable silence. "We are all tired from the journey," he said, his voice calm and measured. "Perhaps we might save the discussions of considerations for tomorrow, when we have had a chance to rest and eat and remember why we are making this journey in the first place." He looked around the table, meeting each pair of eyes in turn. "My son is marrying the woman he loves. That is what matters. Everything else is," he paused, searching for the right word, "negotiable." Marguerite's lips pressed into a thin line, but she did not argue. After a moment of tense silence, old Vera let out a sudden cackle of laughter that startled everyone. "Well said, Marcus," she declared. "Now then, innkeeper, what have you prepared for us? I have been smelling that stew for the past hour, and my stomach is beginning to make demands that can no longer be ignored." The tension broke. If not entirely, then at least enough for supper to proceed. I served the stew in large bowls, accompanied by thick slices of bread and butter churned that morning, and cups of cider that I had been saving for a special occasion. The wedding party ate with the enthusiasm of travelers who have been on the road too long. And gradually, as bellies filled and the fire crackled warmly in the hearth, the mood in the room began to lighten. Young Finn, seated between his mother and the courier Lydia, peppered the table with questions about everything from the best way to catch frogs to whether the inn was haunted. Lydia, a patient woman with the weathered hands of someone who spends her life on the road, answered each question with good humor, and I saw Marguerite's expression soften slightly as she watched her son's animated face. Rosa the seamstress fell into conversation with Edith the housekeeper, and I caught fragments of their discussion. Something about the challenges of sewing beadwork onto silk, the proper way to preserve delicate fabrics, the disasters that had nearly befallen the wedding dress during the long journey. They spoke with the easy camaraderie of women who have found common ground in shared expertise. Cedric the minstrel sat slightly apart from the others, nursing his cider and watching the room with the attentive eyes of a storyteller gathering material. He was a thin man, not yet 30, with long fingers that drummed restlessly against his thigh even when he was sitting still. I noticed that his instrument case sat at his feet, and that he touched it occasionally, as if reassuring himself of its presence. And at the center of it all sat Elena and Tobias, side by side, their shoulders touching, their heads bent together in private conversation. Watching them, I felt the familiar ache of old memories stirring, the ghost of a love long past, the echo of dreams that had taken different shapes than I'd once imagined. But there was sweetness in the ache, and I found myself smiling as I watched them, these young people on the threshold of a shared life. The evening passed in a blur of conversation and laughter, of stories shared and connections formed. I learned that Tobias was a woodcarver by trade, that he had grown up on the western frontier, where his family had homesteaded when he was just a boy. His hands, I noticed, were calloused and scarred from years of working with tools, and when he spoke of his craft, his eyes lit up with the unmistakable fire of true passion. Elena, I learned, was a weaver from a coastal town in the east, a place where the salt wind blew constantly and the sound of waves was the backdrop to every moment of life. She had inherited her grandmother's loom, and she spoke of weaving the way some people speak of prayer, as something sacred, something that connected her to generations of women who had come before. They had met, apparently, at a market fair in a town that lay between their two homes, one of those seasonal gatherings where merchants and craftspeople from all corners of the land come together to sell their wares. Tobias had been selling carved figures and practical items. Elena had been selling our woven cloth. Their stalls had been adjacent, and over the course of 3 days, they had fallen in love. It was a simple story in some ways. Two young people meeting, recognizing something in each other, choosing to build a life together. But simple stories are often the most powerful. And as I listened to them tell their tale, interrupting each other, finishing each other's sentences, laughing at shared jokes that the rest of us could not quite follow, I felt the presence of something larger than mere romance. There was destiny in this match, or something close to it. The sense that these two people had been moving toward each other their entire lives and had finally, against all odds, found their way to the same place at the same time. By the time the fire had burned low and the candles had begun to gutter in their holders, the wedding party was clearly exhausted. One by one, they made their way upstairs to their rooms, calling out goodnight wishes and reminders about tomorrow's schedule. Rosa reminded Elena that they needed to do a final fitting of the dress first thing in the morning. Marcus told Tobias not to stay up too late worrying. Marguerite said nothing at all, but I noticed that she paused at the top of the stairs and looked back at her daughter with an expression that was more complex than I could read. Love and fear and something that might have been regret, all tangled together in her tired eyes. Finally, only the young couple remained, sitting by the dying fire, their hands intertwined on the table between them. I moved quietly around them, clearing the last of the dishes and banking the embers for the night, giving them what privacy I could while remaining close enough to be of service if needed. "I am glad we stopped here," Elena said, her voice soft in the quiet room. "It feels safe, like a place where good things happen." Tobias raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "3 more days," he said, "and then we begin our life together. Are you afraid?" The question hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. "Terrified," Tobias admitted, "but not of marrying you. Never of that. I'm afraid of—" He paused, searching for words. "Of not being enough, of disappointing you, of waking up one day and finding that you have realized you could have done better." Elena reached out and touched his face with her free hand, turning him to meet her eyes. "I could not have done better," she said firmly. "I could not have done half as well. You are the person I want to wake up beside for the rest of my life. You are the person I want to argue with about whether to have potatoes or turnips for dinner. You are the person I want to grow old with and complain about aching joints with and tell our grandchildren stories about." She smiled, and in that smile was a certainty that left no room for doubt. "You are enough, Tobias. You are more than enough. You are everything." I turned away then, feeling that I had witnessed something too intimate for a stranger's eyes. But I carried the warmth of their words with me as I climbed the stairs to my own small room. And I found myself thinking about love and fear and the courage it takes to choose another person as your partner in the uncertain journey of life. The white candle still burned on the mantel when I checked it one last time before retiring, And perhaps it was my imagination, but it seemed to burn a little brighter than usual, as if it too had been moved by the love story unfolding beneath its steady flame. The 18th day of May. I woke before dawn, as is my habit, and spent the quiet hours before breakfast preparing for the day ahead. A wedding party requires different provisions than the usual travelers. More bread, more fresh vegetables, perhaps some sweet treats for the children and the elderly. I made a list of what I would need to acquire from the village market, and another list of what I could prepare myself, and a third list of tasks that had been neglected during the normal business of keeping the inn and would need to be addressed before my guests departed. The morning was cool and fresh, with a mist rising from the low places that gave the crossroads an ethereal quality, as if the inn existed in a world between worlds. The ancient oak tree stood like a sentinel in the pale light, its branches heavy with the prayers of countless travelers who had paused here over the years. I noticed new ribbons among the old ones, faded silk and rough wool, fragments of cloth and strips of leather, each one carrying a wish or a hope or a silent plea to whatever forces might be listening. I was not surprised when old Vera appeared beside me, wrapped in her patchwork shawl, her breath misting in the cool air. "You're an early riser," I observed. "When you reach my age, sleep becomes more suggestion than necessity," she replied, and I wanted to see the tree. We stood together in companionable silence, watching the mist curl around the oak's massive trunk. The ribbons stirred in a breeze too faint for me to feel, and I thought I heard, just for a moment, something that might have been whispered words, though I could not make out what they said. "This is a thin place," Vera said finally, echoing the words she had spoken the night before. "A place where the boundaries between what is and what might be grow permeable. Such places are rare and precious, and not to be taken lightly." She turned to look at me, her eyes bright with intelligence that age had not dimmed. "You know this, keeper. I can see it in you. You have witnessed things here that others would not believe." I thought of the old woman who had given me the white candle, walking on top of the snow as if it were solid ground. I thought of the strange travelers who had passed through over the years, some of whom had seemed not quite of this world. I thought of the dreams I sometimes had, dreams of the crossroads in ages past and ages yet to come, of travelers I had never met but somehow knew. "I have witnessed things," I admitted, "though I'm never quite sure what to make of them." Vera nodded, as if this was the answer she had expected. "That is the proper response to mystery," she said. "Wonder, not understanding. Questions, not answers. The moment you think you have grasped the truth of a thin place, it slips through your fingers like mist." She gestured toward the oak tree, toward the countless ribbons fluttering in the unseen breeze. "My grandson is getting married in 3 days. It is a good match, a true match. But there are shadows around it, complications that threaten to overshadow the joy. I had hoped," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "that a place like this might help to dispel those shadows, or at least to illuminate them so they can be properly addressed." "What kind of shadows?" I asked, though I suspected I already knew at least part of the answer. The tension between Marguerite and the rest of the party was palpable, a dark thread woven through the tapestry of their joy. Vera sighed, and suddenly she looked every one of her many years. "The oldest shadow of all," she said. "Fear. Fear of change, fear of loss, fear of the unknown. Marguerite loves her daughter, of that I have no doubt, but she fears losing her. She fears that this marriage will take Elena away from her, will break the bond between mother and daughter that has been the center of Marguerite's life since Elena's father died. And so she resists and questions and finds fault where there is none to find, because resistance is easier than acceptance, and anger is easier than grief. I had seen such dynamics before in other travelers, other families. The protective parent who cannot accept that their child has grown into an adult capable of making their own choices. The fear of abandonment masquerading as concern for a child's welfare. It was a common story and a painful one. "Does Elena know?" I asked. "Elena knows her mother," Vera replied. "Whether she understands the depth of the fear that drives her, I cannot say, but she is patient and loving and determined. If anyone can bridge the gap between what Marguerite fears and what the future actually holds, it is Elena." We stood together a while longer, watching the sun rise above the eastern hills and burn away the morning mist. The day was warming already, promising another beautiful spring day, and I could hear stirrings from within the inn, the first of the wedding party, beginning to wake and prepare for the day ahead. "There is something you should know," Vera said as we turned to go back inside. "Something that may become important before this week is over." She reached into a pocket of her shawl and withdrew a small object, which she pressed into my hand. It was a ring, a simple band of silver, worn thin by years of handling, but still bright and beautiful in the morning light. "This was my daughter's wedding ring," Vera said. "My son Marcus's wife. She died when Tobias was just a boy, and Marcus has carried this ring with him ever since, waiting for the right moment to pass it on. He intends to give it to Elena on her wedding day as a gift from the family she is joining." I looked at the ring, feeling the weight of memory and meaning it carried. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Vera smiled, a knowing expression that made her aged face suddenly beautiful. "Because thin places have a way of testing people," she said, "of bringing hidden things to light, of revealing truth that has been concealed. Something will happen before this wedding takes place. I feel it in my bones. And when it does, you may need to know about this ring and what it means and who it is meant for." She took the ring back from me and slipped it into her pocket again. "Now then," she said, her tone shifting to something more mundane, I believe I smell breakfast cooking. Shall we go in?" The morning that followed was a flurry of activity, as wedding parties always are. Rosa the seamstress commandeered the largest table in the common room and spread out the wedding dress for its final fitting, and I found myself marveling at the garment she had created. It was made of silk, the color of cream, with delicate beadwork along the bodice that caught the light and scattered it in tiny rainbows. The sleeves were long and flowing in the Eastern coastal style, and the hem was embroidered with a pattern of waves and flowers that told a story of Elena's heritage. Elena stood in the center of the room while Rosa circled her, pinning and adjusting and making small sounds of concentration. Marguerite watched from a chair by the window, her expression unreadable, while young Finn lounged in a corner, clearly bored by the proceedings, but forbidden to leave. "The beadwork is exquisite," I said to Rosa as I passed through the room with an armful of fresh linens. She smelled pleased by the compliment. "It is the pattern of Elena's grandmother's dress," she explained. "The original gown was lost in a fire many years ago, but Elena remembered the design, and I've done my best to recreate it. It is important, I think, to carry the past with us into the future, especially on a day like a wedding day." I thought of the silver ring in Vera's pocket, and I understood exactly what Rosa meant. The fitting took most of the morning, and by the time Rosa declared herself satisfied, the sun was high overhead, and the common room had grown warm with the heat of the day. I opened the windows to let in the spring breeze, and the scent of apple blossoms drifted in from the orchard, mingling with the smell of baking bread and simmering soup. The groom's family had spent the morning in their own pursuits. Marcus had taken Tobias out to the stable, where they were tending to the horses, and I suspected, having the sort of father-son conversation that precedes major life events, old Vera had settled herself in a sunny corner with a cup of tea and what appeared to be a collection of soul bones, which she was arranging and rearranging in patterns I could not decipher. Edith, the housekeeper, had volunteered to help me with the cooking, and together we had prepared a feast fit for a celebration. Roasted chicken with herbs, fresh bread with honey, spring vegetables glazed with butter, and a custard tart that was Edith's specialty. Cedric the minstrel had found a quiet spot beneath the ancient oak tree where he sat with his instrument, a lute, I now saw, its wood polished to a shine that spoke of long years of loving care, and practiced the songs he would play at the wedding. The music drifted through the open windows, sweet and melancholy and hopeful all at once, and more than once I caught members of the wedding party pausing in their activities to listen, their faces softened by the sound. It was mid-afternoon when the first sign of trouble appeared. Young Finn came racing into the common room, his face flushed and his eyes wide with what I recognized immediately as the particular panic of a child who has done something wrong. "The rings!" he gasped, skidding to a halt in front of his mother. "Mother, the rings are gone!" The effect of his words was immediate and dramatic. Marguerite's face went pale. Elena dropped the lace she had been examining and turned to stare at her brother. The seamstress Rosa let out a small cry of distress. Even Vera looked up from her bones with an expression of sharp concern. "What do you mean, gone?" Marguerite demanded, her voice rising. The rings were in the locked box in my room. How could they be gone? Finn's face crumpled, and I could see him struggling not to cry. I just wanted to look at them, he said, the words tumbling out in a rush. I was careful, I promise. I was so careful, but then I heard noise outside, and I went to look, and when I came back, the box was still there, but the rings were... He swallowed hard. They were not inside anymore. You took them out? Marguerite's voice had gone cold and hard. You opened the locked box, took out the wedding rings, and lost them. I did not mean to. I thought I put them back. You thought. Marguerite was on her feet now, her composure completely shattered. Those rings have been in our family for 3 generations. Your grandmother's ring, your great-grandmother's ring, the rings that have blessed every marriage in our line. And you thought you would just take them out and look at them as if they were toys? Finn was crying now, tears streaming down his face. I am sorry, he sobbed. I am so sorry, Mother. I did not mean... Sorry does not bring back heirloom rings, Marguerite shouted. And then, suddenly, she crumbled. All the rage drained out of her face, replaced by something that looked very much like despair. She sat down heavily in the nearest chair and covered her face with her hands. The room was silent, except for Finn's muffled sobs. Elena moved to her brother's side and put an arm around his shoulders, but her own face was stricken. The rings were not merely jewelry. I understood what now. They were symbols, connections to ancestors and traditions, carriers of blessings and memories that could not be replaced. We must search, I said, my voice cutting through the silence with the practical tone that comes from years of managing crises, both large and small. When did you last have the rings, Finn? Where exactly were you when you took them from the box? The boy lifted his tear-stained face and struggled to compose himself. I was in my room, he said. I took them to the window because the light was better there. I was holding them up to see how the gold caught the sun. And then I heard something outside. A bird, I think a very loud bird. And I set them down on the windowsill while I leaned out to look. And when you came back, they were gone? Finn nodded miserably. I looked everywhere. The floor, the bed, under the furniture, but they are not there. They are just gone. I exchanged a glance with Elena, whose expression told me she was thinking the same thing I was. Could they have fallen outside the window? She asked gently. If you set them on the windowsill and then leaned out to look at the bird, could you have knocked them off? I do not think so, Finn said, but his voice was uncertain. I was careful. We will search anyway, I said firmly. Inside and outside. The rings may have rolled somewhere unexpected or fallen into a crack we have not noticed. Things are rarely as lost as they seem, especially in this place. I did not elaborate on what I meant by that last statement, but I saw Vera look up from her corner with a knowing expression. She rose from her seat, leaving her bones on the table, and joined us by the door. The boy is right that he heard a bird, she said quietly, for my ears alone. But not just any bird. I heard it too, a raven calling from the direction of the oak tree. I felt a chill run down my spine that had nothing to do with the spring breeze. Ravens had a particular significance at the crossroads. They appeared in my dreams sometimes, and in the stories travelers told about this place. They were messengers, tricksters, carriers of secrets between worlds. You think a raven took the rings? I asked. Vera shrugged, a gesture that conveyed more ambiguity than dismissal. I think we should search the oak tree very carefully, she said, and I think we should keep our eyes open for signs and wonders. This is a thin place, Keeper. Things happen here that would not happen elsewhere. The search that followed was thorough and methodical. We divided into groups, the men searching the exterior of the inn and the grounds, the women searching the interior, and young Finn leading us to every place he had been since taking the rings from the box. I kept one eye on Marguerite, who had pulled herself together enough to join the search, but whose face remained pale and drawn, the weight of her distress evident in every line of her body. We found nothing inside the inn. No rings caught in floorboard cracks, no golden gleam beneath furniture, no sign of where the precious objects might have gone. The windowsill in Finn's room was searched 3 times, as was the ground beneath it, but the rings were simply not there. It was nearly sunset when Marcus came striding across the yard, his face alight with an expression I could not quite read, excitement and puzzlement, and something that might have been awe, all tangled together. "You need to come see this," he said, "all of you, at the oak tree." We followed him across the crossroads, our little procession casting long shadows in the golden evening light. The ancient oak loomed before us, its branches heavy with ribbons and prayers, its trunk massive and gnarled with centuries of growth. I had stood before this tree 1,000 times, but I still felt the weight of its presence, the sense that it was watching, waiting, holding secrets that I would never fully understand. Marcus led us around to the far side of the tree where a hollow had formed in the trunk, a natural cavity, probably carved by lightning strikes and rot over countless years. I had known it was there, of course. Travelers sometimes left offerings in it, small gifts for the spirits of the crossroads, but I had not examined it closely in some time. "Look," Marcus said, pointing into the hollow. I leaned forward, letting my eyes adjust to the shadows within the cavity, and there, nestled among the decomposing leaves and fragments of past offerings, I saw them. 2 gold rings gleaming faintly in the fading light. But they were not alone. Beside them lay a 3rd ring, a simple band of silver worn thin by years of handling. The same ring that Vera had shown me that morning. The ring that had belonged to Marcus's wife, that he had carried with him for all these years, waiting for the right moment to give it to Elena. "That is impossible," Marcus whispered, his voice hoarse. "I had that ring in my pocket. I checked it just this morning. I never took it out. He reached into his pocket, patting frantically, his expression shifting from confusion to something close to fear. "It is not there," he said. "It is gone. But how could it be?" Vera stepped forward, her aged face calm in the midst of everyone else's bewilderment. "The tree has gathered them," she said simply. "The wedding rings, the mother's ring, all 3 together as they should be." But how? Elena asked, her voice small and wondering. How is this possible? Some questions do not have answers, Vera replied. Or rather, they have answers we are not meant to understand. What matters is that the rings are found and they are together, and they have been blessed by the spirits of this place. She looked at me, her eyes holding that knowing glint I had come to recognize. Would you do the honors, keeper? I understood what she was asking. Slowly, reverently, I reached into the hollow of the oak tree and withdrew the 3 rings. They were warm to the touch, warmer than they should have been, and they seemed to pulse faintly in my palm as if they carried their own heartbeats. I handed the 2 gold wedding rings to Elena, who received them with hands that trembled slightly. And then I turned to Marcus, offering him back the silver band that had been his wife's. But Marcus shook his head. No, he said, his voice thick with emotion. No, the tree is right. The rings should be together. He looked at Elena, and I saw tears gathering in his eyes. That was my wife's ring, Tobias's mother's ring. I have been waiting for the right moment to give it to you, to welcome you properly into our family. I thought that moment would be the wedding day, but he gestured helplessly at the oak tree, at the gathering darkness, at the improbable miracle that had just occurred. But perhaps the moment is now. He took the silver ring from my hand and held it out to Elena. This is for you, he said, not to replace your family's rings, but to join them. 3 rings for a marriage that bridges 2 families, 2 traditions, 2 ways of living in this world. Will you accept it? Elena's face was wet with tears, but she was smiling, a smile so full of joy and wonder that it seemed to illuminate the gathering dusk. Will, she said, taking the ring, I will accept it, and I will honor it, and I will carry it always. And then, to everyone's surprise, including, I think, her own, Marguerite stepped forward and embraced Elena. Not a formal embrace, not a reserved gesture of maternal affection, but a true embrace, the kind that holds nothing back. I am sorry, Marguerite whispered, her voice carrying in the sudden silence. I have been so afraid of losing you that I nearly pushed you away, but you are not lost. You are not going anywhere I cannot follow. You are simply, she pulled back, looking her daughter in the eyes, growing, becoming, and I should be celebrating that, not mourning it. Mother, Elena said, and that single word held a world of forgiveness, of understanding, of love that transcended the petty fears and conflicts that so often divide families. They stood together beneath the ancient oak, mother and daughter, and the ribbons on the branches seemed to flutter in approval, though there was no wind. The white candle in the inn behind us burned bright enough to cast its light all the way to where we stood, a beacon in the gathering darkness. And young Finn, who had started this whole crisis with his childish curiosity, watched with wide eyes and a slowly spreading smile, as if he understood, perhaps for the first time, that some mistakes lead to better places than the careful path would ever have found. The 19th day of May, the morning after the miracle of the rings, dawned bright and clear, with a sky so blue it seemed painted by a master artist, and clouds like cotton wool drifting lazily on the spring breeze. I rose early, as always, but found that I was not the first one awake. Old Vera sat at her accustomed place by the window, her cup of tea steaming before her, her eyes fixed on the oak tree visible through the glass. "Did you sleep well?" I asked, as I began my morning preparations. "I dreamed," she replied, "good dreams. Dreams of weddings and new beginnings and roads stretching into futures too bright to look at directly." She turned to face me, and her smile held secrets I knew better than to ask about. "The tree blessed them, Keeper. Whatever shadows hung over this match have been lifted. The wedding will go smoothly now." I wanted to believe her. The reconciliation between Marguerite and Elena the evening before had been genuine and moving, and the entire atmosphere of the wedding party had shifted. But I had learned over the years that thin places are unpredictable. They give blessings, yes, but they also test. The same forces that had returned the rings might have other lessons yet to teach. The day that followed was one of celebration and preparation. Rosa put the finishing touches on Elena's dress, adding a small pocket on the inside where the 3 rings could be carried close to her heart until the ceremony. Cedric practiced his wedding songs until even young Finn knew the words by heart and could be heard humming them as he explored every corner of the inn and its grounds. Edith and I worked together in the kitchen, preparing dishes that would keep well for the journey to Millbrook the following day. But the heart of the day's activities was the gathering around the oak tree. It began as a simple walk. Tobias and Elena wanting to spend time together before the wedding, to talk and dream and make plans for the life they would share. But gradually, one by one, the rest of the party joined them, until we were all dancing in the dappled shade of the ancient tree, looking up at its branches, heavy with prayers and memories. "I would like to add our own ribbon," Elena said, her voice soft but clear, "to thank the tree for what it did last night and to ask its blessing on our marriage." I nodded and went inside to fetch ribbons. I keep a collection for exactly this purpose, in various colors and materials, so that travelers can choose the one that speaks to them. I returned with an armful of options, and Elena selected a length of pale blue silk, the color of a summer sky, the color of hope. But she did not tie it to the tree alone. She handed one end to Tobias, and together they wound it around a low-hanging branch, their hands moving in unison as if they had practiced the gesture 1,000 times. And when the ribbon was secured, it seemed to glow in the afternoon light, brighter than the sun alone could account for. "We are ready," Elena said, turning to face the assembled wedding party. "Tomorrow we travel to Millbrook. The day after we marry. And after that," she looked at Tobias, and the love in her eyes was unmistakable. "After that, we begin the adventure of our life together." There were tears, of course, happy tears, the kind that come when joy is too big to contain. Marguerite wept openly, her reserve completely abandoned, and even Marcus had to turn away for a moment to compose himself. Young Finn declared the whole thing rather soggy, but was smile-a-tealing as he said it. And Vera simply stood and watched, her ancient face serene, as if she had known all along that everything would work out exactly as it was meant to. We returned to the inn as the sun began its descent, and the evening that followed was one of the happiest I have witnessed in all my years. As a keeper of this place, Cedric played his lute and sang songs of love and homecoming, and even those of us without musical training joined in on the choruses. Edith served the feast she and I had prepared, and compliments flowed as freely as the wine I had been saving for a special occasion. Stories were told, stories of courtship and marriage, of families united and traditions passed down, of the small miracles that make life worth living. Tobias's father, Marcus, told a story of how he had met his wife, Vera's daughter, Tobias's mother. It was a simple tale. They had grown up in the same frontier settlement, had known each other since childhood, had always assumed they would marry because it seemed so obvious, so natural, so right. Some love stories are dramatic, Marcus said, his voice thick with memory. They involve obstacles and trials and grand gestures, but ours was quiet. We simply saw each other, really saw each other, and knew. The rest was just, he paused, searching for the word, details. Vera added to the story, speaking of her daughter, with the particular tenderness of a mother who has outlived her child. She would have loved you, Elena, she said. She would have welcomed you as a daughter in truth, not just in name, and she would have been proud of Tobias, proud of the man he has become, proud of the choice he has made. Elena's eyes were wet when she responded. I wish I could have known her, she said, but I feel somehow that I do know her. Through Tobias, through you, through the ring she wore. Her love is still here, still part of this family. And now it will be part of my family too. Marguerite, who had been quiet through much of the evening, finally spoke. I owe you all an apology, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion visible on her face. I have been difficult, more than difficult. I have let my fears poison what should have been a joyous occasion. I told myself I was protecting Elena, but I was protecting myself from the pain of change, from the reality that my daughter was no longer a child who needs me in the same way she once did. She paused, and I saw her reach for Elena's hand. But last night at the oak tree, I understood something, Marguerite continued. Change is not loss. Growth is not abandonment. Elena is becoming who she was meant to be, and that includes being a wife, a partner, a member of a new family. My role is not to hold her back, but to, she smiled through her tears, to let go, and to trust that the woman I raised is strong enough and wise enough to build a beautiful life. She is, Tobias said. I promise you that. Marguerite looked at him, and for the first time since the wedding party arrived, I saw genuine warmth in her expression when she regarded her future son-in-law. "I know," she said simply. "I know." The night deepened around us as we talked and ate and laughed and cried. The candles burned low and were replaced with fresh ones. The fire crackled and popped, sending sparks up the chimney into the starlit sky. And through it all, the white candle on the mantel burned steadily, its flame never wavering, its light casting a warm glow over the gathered company. I found myself standing apart at one point, watching from the doorway as the wedding party celebrated. They were strangers to me, these people. They had arrived only 2 days ago, and they would leave tomorrow, and I might never see any of them again. But for this moment, they were my guests, my charges, my responsibility. And watching them together, I felt the familiar warmth that makes this work worthwhile. The knowledge that I had provided a place where people could rest, could connect, could find what they needed for the next leg of their journey. Vera appeared beside me, as she had a habit of doing. "You have a good heart, keeper," she said quietly. "This place chose well when it chose you." I was not sure what to say to that, so I simply nodded. "When they tell this story in years to come," Vera continued, "they will mention the Crossroads Inn. They will tell of the tree that gathered the rings, of the innkeeper who made them feel welcome, of the thin place where a family was healed. You are part of their story now, keeper, woven into the tapestry of their lives. That is no small thing." "They are part of my story too," I said. "Every traveler who passes through leaves something behind, a memory, a word, a moment. I collect them all in my journal and in my heart." Vera smiled, that knowing smile that seemed to see right through me. "Then right well," she said. "And remember that the most important stories are the ones about love." The 20th day of May, the day of departure, arrived with a sunrise that seemed designed by Providence itself. The sky turned from deep indigo to soft violet, to rose and finally to gold, each stage of the transformation more beautiful than the last. I stood on the porch of the inn and watched it unfold, and I thought of all the sunrises I have witnessed from this spot over the years, sunrises that heralded joy and sunrises that preceded sorrow, sunrises that marked endings and sunrises that promised new beginnings. This sunrise felt like all of them at once. The wedding party rose early, eager to complete the final leg of their journey while the day was still young. There was a purposeful energy in the inn as everyone gathered their belongings and prepared for departure, the organized chaos that always accompanies the end of a stay, multiplied by the size of the group and the significance of what awaited them. I served a simple breakfast, fresh bread with honey and butter, eggs from the chickens behind the inn, slices of ham that had been curing in the smokehouse. The food was good and filling, the kind of meal that provides energy for a long morning of travel without weighing down the stomach. The conversation around the table was lighter than it had been since the party arrived. The crisis of the rings had been resolved, the tensions between families had been eased, and all that remained was the final journey to Millbrook and the wedding itself. Young Finn chattered about everything and nothing, his natural exuberance restored, now that he was no longer burdened by guilt. Marguerite actually laughed at something Marcus said, a genuine laugh, free of the reserve that had characterized her previous interactions with the groom's family. And Elena and Tobias sat side by side, their hands intertwined on the table, their faces glowing with the particular radiance of people who are about to see their dreams come true. It was during this breakfast that I finally had a chance to speak properly with Cedric the minstrel. He had been a quiet presence throughout the wedding party's day, always there, always observing, but rarely inserting himself into conversations. I had assumed this was simply his nature, the personality of a performer who saves his energy for the stage. But as I refilled his cup of tea, I noticed something in his expression that gave me pause. A shadow, perhaps, lurking behind the pleasant smile he wore, a tension in his shoulders that spoke of burden rather than anticipation. "You have been quiet," I observed, keeping my voice low so as not to attract attention from the others. Cedric looked up at me, and for a moment the mask slipped, revealing something raw and uncertain beneath. "I have much on my mind," he admitted. "Would you like to talk about it?" He was silent for a long moment, his fingers drumming that restless rhythm against his thigh. Then, with a small shrug that seemed to contain multitudes, he said, "Why not? I could use the counsel of a stranger. Sometimes it is easier to speak truth to those who do not know us well enough to judge." I sat down across from him, signaling to the others that I would be a moment. The breakfast conversation continued without us, a bubble of sound that provided cover for our private exchange. "I'm afraid," Cedric said simply, "of the wedding, of failing at the wedding." He looked down at his hands, those long musician's fingers that had coaxed such beautiful tunes from his lute. "I have been hired to provide music for the ceremony and the celebration afterward. It is a significant commission, the kind that could make my reputation or destroy it." "And you doubt your ability?" Cedric's laugh was hollow. "I doubt everything, my skill, my worth, my purpose in this world." He met my eyes, and I saw the depth of his uncertainty. I was not always a traveling minstrel keeper. I was trained as a court musician, destined for a position of prestige and stability. I was good, everyone said so, the best student my master had ever taught. "What happened?" He was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. "They made a mistake," he said finally. "A single wrong note during an important performance. The audience noticed. The noble who was hosting the event noticed. And my master," Cedric's voice caught, "my master noticed most of all." "One wrong note destroyed your career. One wrong note destroyed my confidence. The career crumbled afterward because I could no longer trust myself. Every time I picked up my instrument, I heard that wrong note in my memory. I started making more mistakes, small ones at first, then larger ones. Eventually, my master suggested that perhaps I should seek a different path. He said it kindly, but I heard the disappointment in his voice. I understood then the weight he had been carrying. Not the weight of a single failure, but the accumulated weight of all the failures that followed, the slow erosion of self-belief that turns talented people into shadows of their former selves. How long ago was this? I asked. 3 years. I have spent them wandering, playing for coins in taverns and at small gatherings, trying to rebuild something from the wreckage. He gestured at his lute case, still sitting by his feet. This instrument was a gift from my master before the end. It is the only thing of value I still own. Some days I love it. Other days I think I should sell it and find a different trade. But you did not sell it. No. A small smile crossed his face. I could not. The music is still in me, even when I'm afraid of it. Even when I think I have lost it entirely, I hear a melody in my head, and I know that this is what I was meant to do. Then why are you afraid of the wedding? Cedric leaned back in his chair, his eyes drifting toward the window where the morning light streamed in. Because it matters, he said. Because Elena and Tobias deserve perfect music on their perfect day, and I'm terrified that I will ruin it for them, that I will play a wrong note at a crucial moment, and the memory of their wedding will be forever tainted by my failure. I considered his words carefully before responding. Over the years, I have learned that advice given too quickly is often advice wasted. It bounces off the surface of a problem without penetrating to its heart. But I had also learned that silence can be its own form of cruelty, that sometimes people need words as much as they need food or shelter. May I tell you something I have observed? I asked. Cedric nodded. I have been listening to you practice for the past 3 days. I have heard you beneath the oak tree, working through the songs you plan to play at the wedding. And in all that time, I have not heard a single wrong note. Cedric opened his mouth to protest, but I held up a hand. I'm not saying this to flatter you. I am saying it because it is true. Your music is beautiful, technically precise, and emotionally resonant. When you play, even the birds stop singing to listen. Even the ancient oak seems to lean toward you as if it too is moved by what you create. But the wrong note you played 3 years ago was one note in thousands, one moment in a lifetime of music. Your master was wrong to cast you out for such a small imperfection, and you are wrong to let it define you. I met his eyes, willing him to hear me. Fear is a liar, Cedric. It tells us that we are not good enough, that we do not deserve the things we dream of, that every failure is a prophecy of future disasters. But it is lying. You are good enough. You have always been good enough. The only thing standing between you and the career you want is your belief in fear's lies. Cedric was silent for a long moment. I could see him wrestling with my words, testing them against the years of self-doubt he had accumulated. It was not an easy battle. I knew that from experience. The voice of fear is persistent and persuasive, and it doesn't yield to a single conversation. But something shifted in his expression as I watched. A flicker of hope, perhaps, or a spark of the confidence he had lost so long ago. You really believe that? He asked quietly. I believe it absolutely. He looked down at his lute case again, but this time his gaze was different, not burdened, but considering, evaluating. as if seeing the instrument for the first time. "I will think about what you have said," he promised. "I cannot promise that I will believe it immediately, but I will think about it. That is all I ask." The conversation might have continued, but at that moment, Marcus called out that the wagons were loaded and it was time to depart. The breakfast gathering broke up in a flurry of last-minute preparations. Coats retrieved, boots pulled on, final checks of pockets and bags to make sure nothing was forgotten. I stood on the porch and watched them prepare. These travelers, who had become something like friends over the course of their brief stay. The wagons were arranged in their traveling order, the horses refreshed and eager after 2 days of rest. The members of the wedding party settling into their accustomed places. Elena came to me last, her face radiant in the morning light. "Thank you," she said, taking my hands in hers, "for everything, the food, the rooms, the welcome, but especially," she glanced toward the oak tree visible across the crossroads, "especially for this place, for the tree that found our rings, for the magic that brought my family together." "I am only the keeper," I said. "The magic belongs to the Crossroads." She smiled, that knowing smile that reminded me suddenly of old Vera. "Perhaps. But you are part of the magic too. Never forget that." She kissed my cheek, a quick brush of lips. And then she was climbing into the wagon where her mother waited, and Tobias was mounting his horse, and Marcus was calling out instructions to the drivers, and Vera was waving from her seat, her patchwork shawl bright against the morning. "Wait!" I called out, suddenly remembering something. They paused, all of them turning to look at me. "There is a tradition at the Crossroads," I said, "for travelers who wish to return someday. They leave something at the oak tree, a token, a ribbon, a promise, and in exchange, the tree remembers them, keeps a place for them, ensures that no matter how far they wander, they will always be able to find their way back." I walked toward the ancient oak as I spoke, and they followed me, a small procession of travelers standing at the threshold of a new chapter in their lives. "You have already left a ribbon," I said, gesturing to the pale blue silk that Elena and Tobias had tied to the branch the day before. "But I thought perhaps, if you wished, you might add something more, a word, a wish, a blessing for the road ahead." They stood in silence for a moment, looking up at the tree with its countless prayers and memories. Then Tobias stepped forward. "I wish for a life filled with love," he said, his voice clear and strong. "For patience when the road grows difficult, and gratitude when it grows easy. For the wisdom to know what matters, and the courage to let go of what does not." Elena joined him, their hands intertwining. "I wish for a home," she said. "Not just a building, but a place where we belong, where our children will grow, where our grandchildren will visit, where love will accumulate like dust on shelves, becoming part of the very walls." One by one, the others added their wishes. Marcus wished for more days like this one, surrounded by family and looking toward a future bright with promise. Vera wished for the strength to see the wedding and the wisdom to know when her work was done. Marguerite wished for forgiveness, for herself, for her fears, for all the ways she had let love become tangled with control. Young Finn wished for adventure, and then, with a surprising show of maturity, amended his wish to include the safe return from any adventures undertaken. Even Cedric added his voice, stepping forward with his lute case clutched to his chest. "I wish for the courage to trust my own music," he said quietly, "and for the grace to forgive myself when I fall short of perfection." I felt the tree listening, ancient and patient and full of secrets. The ribbons rustled in a breeze that seemed to come from nowhere, and for just a moment I thought I heard something, a whisper, a murmur, a sound too soft to identify but too distinct to dismiss. The tree had received their wishes. Whether it would grant them, I could not say, but they had been heard and recorded and woven into the tapestry of prayers that stretched back generations. "Go well," I said, as the wedding party returned to their wagons and horses. "May the road rise to meet you, and may you find at journey's end everything you have hoped for." Tobias raised a hand in farewell, and Elena blew a kiss from the wagon, and Marcus nodded with the dignity of a man who knows his worth, and Vera smiled that knowing to us one final time. Young Finn shouted something enthusiastic that I could not quite catch, and Marguerite met my eyes and mouthed two words that I understood perfectly: "Thank you." And then they were moving, the wagons creaking and the horses' hooves striking the hard-packed earth, the wedding party diminishing slowly as they traveled down the road toward Millbrook and the ceremony that awaited them. I watched until they crested the first hill and disappeared from view. The Crossroads felt strangely empty without them, larger somehow and quieter, as if their departure had taken some of the life from this place. But it was a temporary emptiness, I knew. Other travelers would come, other stories would unfold, the Crossroads would fill with life again, as it always did, because this was a place where journeys intersected, where paths crossed, where strangers became friends, and friends became family. I turned back toward the inn, already thinking about the task that awaited me: linens to wash, rooms to air, the kitchen to clean, the ordinary work of an innkeeper, the rhythms that gave shape to my days. But before I went inside, I paused at the oak tree one last time. The pale blue ribbon that Elena and Tobias had tied fluttered gently in the morning breeze, bright among the faded colors of older prayers. Nearby I noticed something I had not seen before, a small carving in the bark, fresh enough that the exposed wood was still pale against the darker surface. Two letters intertwined, E and T, Elena and Tobias. Their initials, woven together, carved into the tree that had witnessed their family's healing. I smiled and ran my fingers over the carving, feeling the rough texture beneath my skin. "Watch over them," I murmured to the tree, or to whatever spirits listened at the crossroads. "They are good people, starting a good life. They deserve all the happiness the world can offer. The tree did not answer, of course. Trees rarely do. But I thought I felt a presence, a listening, a subtle acknowledgement of my words. Then I went inside to begin my work. The 21st day of May, a quiet day. No travelers arrived, and I spent the hours in solitary tasks, cleaning, mending, preparing the inn for whoever might need it next. The silence was comfortable rather than lonely, the kind of quiet that allows for reflection and rest. I found myself thinking often of the wedding party, imagining them arriving in Millbrook, preparing for the ceremony, surrounded by whatever friends and extended family awaited them there. I wondered if Elena's dress had survived the final leg of the journey without damage, if Cedric's music was as beautiful as I believed it would be, if old Vera was able to watch her grandson marry the woman he loved. I wondered, too, about the magic of the Crossroads. The tree had returned the rings, that much was undeniable. It had gathered them from wherever they had fallen and placed them in its hollow, along with the silver ring that Marcus had intended as a gift. How? Why? These are questions without answers, mysteries that I had learned to accept rather than solve. But I chose to believe that the tree had been trying to help, that it had seen the shadows threatening the wedding, the fears and tensions that might have torn the families apart, and had acted in its own strange way to address them. The rings in the hollow had been a catalyst, a spark that ignited the reconciliation between Marguerite and her daughter, between the two families that were about to become one. Such interventions were not uncommon at the Crossroads. I had witnessed others over the years. Travelers finding exactly what they needed in unexpected places, conflicts resolved through improbable coincidences, lost things returned, and found things revealed. The thin place at the intersection of the roads seemed to have its own agenda, its own way of shaping the stories that passed through it. I was grateful to be part of those stories, grateful for the role I played, however small, grateful for the travelers who trusted me with their rest and their secrets and their hope. The evening was mild and pleasant, so I took my journal outside and sat beneath the ancient oak to write. The ribbons rustled overhead, their colors dimmed by the fading light, and the carving of Elena and Tobias's initials was barely visible in the dusk. I wrote about the wedding party, recording the details of their stay while they were still fresh in my memory. I wrote about the lost rings and their mysterious recovery. I wrote about Marguerite's transformation and Vera's quiet wisdom. I wrote about Cedric's confession and the advice I had offered him. And I wrote about love, about its many forms and expressions, about its power to heal and its capacity to hurt, about the courage it takes to offer your heart to another person and trust that they will handle it with care. Love is a strange thing, I reflected. It is strong enough to move mountains and fragile enough to shatter at a careless word. It binds people together and drives them apart. It inspires the greatest acts of heroism and the deepest depths of cruelty. It is the most universal of human experiences and the most intensely personal. We spend our whole lives learning how to love, how to give it, how to receive it, how to let it grow without strangling it, how to let it go without losing ourselves. Some of us learn quickly, others struggle for decades. Some of us find great loves that define our entire existence. Others find small loves that accumulate like snowflakes, forming drifts of warmth and connection. The wedding party had come to the crossroads, seeking rest on their journey toward love made official. But what they had found was something more, a healing of old wounds, a resolution of lingering conflicts, a reminder that love is not about possession, but about partnership, not about control, but about trust. I hoped they would remember this place. I hoped that in years to come, when they told the story of their wedding, they would mention the Crossroads Inn and the ancient oak and the miracle of the rings. I hoped that memory would bring them comfort in difficult times and joy in good ones. And I hoped, I knew it was foolish, but I hoped nonetheless that someday they would return, that I would look up from my work and see them approaching down the road, older now, perhaps with children of their own, coming back to the place where their family had become whole. The Crossroads has a way of calling people back, of creating bonds that stretch across time and distance. I have seen it happen before. Former guests appearing years later, drawn by memories they cannot quite explain. Travelers who were strangers becoming friends, who write letters, send gifts, visit when their journeys bring them near. Perhaps the wedding party would become part of that pattern. Perhaps I would see them again. Or perhaps not. Perhaps they would walk into their new life and leave the crossroads behind, a brief chapter in a longer story. That would be all right too. I have learned not to cling to the travelers who pass through, not to expect them to return, not to measure my worth by their continued presence in my life. I am the keeper of the crossroads, the guardian of the between time. My purpose is to welcome those who arrive and wish well those who depart. What happens after they leave is not mine to control, but I can remember them. I can write their stories in my journal and carry their faces in my heart. I can light a candle in the window and hope that wherever they are, they feel its wool warmth. The white candle burned steadily on the mantel as I returned inside, its flame unwavering despite the breeze that followed me through the door. I paused to watch it for a moment, as I often do, marveling at the way it had continued burning all these years without ever seeming to diminish. "Welcome them all," the old woman had said when she gave it to me. Welcome them all. I had tried to honor her words, to open my doors to whoever needed shelter, to offer warmth and food and a listening ear to the endless stream of humanity that passed through the crossroads. I had welcomed merchants and pilgrims, soldiers and scholars, families traveling together and individuals traveling alone. I had welcomed the joyful and the grieving, the hopeful and the despairing, the found and the lost. And I would continue to welcome them for as long as I was able, because that was my calling, my purpose, the work that gave meaning to my days. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, and the shadows gathered in the corners of the common room, and somewhere outside an owl called its hunting cry into the spring night. I climbed the narrow stairs to my small room beneath the sloped ceiling, to the desk my father had built when I was a child, and I finished recording the story of the wedding party by candlelight. Then I slept, and I dreamed of white silk and golden rings, and an ancient tree that listened to the wishes of travelers, and sometimes granted them. The 22nd day of May. Today brought news of the wedding delivered by a courier who was passing through on his way to the Northern Territories. He had stopped in Millbrook the day before, he said, and the whole village was still talking about the ceremony. "A beautiful wedding," he reported, warming his good hands around a cup of tea while his horse rested in the stable. The bride was radiant, the groom was clearly besotted, and the families— he paused as if searching for the right words. The families seemed genuinely happy, which is not always the case, as you probably know. Half the weddings I've passed through are more obligation than celebration, but this one felt, again, that searching pause, blessed, as if some higher power had decided these two people should be together and had arranged everything to make it happen. I smiled at his words, thinking of the oak tree and its hollow, of the rings gathered and returned, of the reconciliation beneath the branches, heavy with prayers. The music was particularly memorable, the courier continued. A traveling minstrel, I believe. He played during the ceremony and afterward at the celebration. I have heard many musicians in my travels, but this one— he shook his head in admiration. This one was special. The kind of player who makes you forget you are listening to an instrument, who makes you believe the music is coming from into their own heart. Cedric, I thought, and felt a surge of warmth at the news. He had found his courage after all. He had trusted his music, played without fear, created something beautiful at exactly the moment when beauty was needed. Did he seem happy? I asked. The minstrel? The courier considered the question. Now that you mention it, yes, he seemed almost surprised by his own performance, as if he had not expected it to go so well. But definitely happy. There was a moment at the end of the wedding ceremony when he played something so achingly beautiful that half the crowd was in tears. And when he finished, he just sat there with this expression on his face. The courier smiled at the memory, like a man who has just rediscovered something he thought he had lost forever. I thought of our conversation on the morning of departure, of the advice I had offered, and Sir Cedric's promise to think about it. I thought of the fear that had been slowly destroying him, and the possibility that he had finally found a way to lay it to rest. That is good to hear, I said. I'm glad the wedding went well. So well that they are already planning the first anniversary celebration, the courier said with a laugh. The innkeeper in Millbrook was complaining that they have booked his entire establishment for the occasion. He did not seem too put out about it, though. A guaranteed full house is nothing to sneeze at. I agreed that it was not. The courier finished his tea and departed shortly after, continuing on his journey to wherever fate and duty called him. But his news stayed with me throughout the day, a warm presence that made my solitary tasks feel less lonely. The wedding had been beautiful. Cedric had played magnificently. The families that had been so fraught with tension when they arrived at my inn had come together in celebration. It was a good ending to a good story. The kind of ending that reminds you why you keep going, why you open your doors and welcome strangers, and believe in the possibility of happy outcomes despite all evidence to the contrary. The Crossroads had worked its magic once again, and I had been there to witness it, to support it, to play my small part in the unfolding of a love story that would be told and retold for generations. That evening, I walked out to the oak tree and looked up at the pale blue ribbon still fluttering among the branches. It had been there only a few days, but already it seemed to belong, to be part of the tree's collection of prayers and hopes, indistinguishable from the older offerings, except for the brightness of its color. They made it, I said softly, to the tree or to the spirits of the crossroads, or perhaps just to myself. They are married now, starting their life together. The ribbons, I rustled in response, though there was but no wind. I stood there for a while longer, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky, feeling the presence of all the travelers who had passed through this place over the years, their hopes and fears, their dreams and disappointments, the stories they had left behind, and the stories they had carried forward. Then I went inside, to the warmth of the fire and the steadiness of the white candle, and I began to write. The 23rd day of May, another quiet day, though not an empty one. A merchant passed through around midday, stopping only long enough to water his horses and buy a loaf of bread. He was heading west, he said, carrying goods from the coastal markets to the frontier settlements, and he could not afford to linger. I understood. The roads do not wait for anyone, and the seasons turn regardless of our preferences. If he hoped to reach his destination before the summer heat made travel unbearable, he needed to keep moving. But his brief visit reminded me that the crossroads is always connected to the wider world, always part of something larger than itself. Even when no travelers are present, the roads stretch in 4 directions, linking my small inn to markets and towns and settlements scattered across the land. Everything is connected, if you know how to see the connections. The afternoon brought Lydia the courier back to my door, she who had traveled with the wedding party to deliver the official marriage contract. She had stayed in Millbrook for the ceremony, she explained, wanting to ensure that everything was properly signed and witnessed before returning to her duties. "But I wanted to stop here on my way back," she said, settling into a chair by the fire with obvious relief, "to thank you for your hospitality and to tell you how things went." "The courier who passed through yesterday already brought news," I said. "He spoke very highly of the wedding." Lydia nodded. her weathered face creasing into a smile. It was everything they hoped for. Elena was beautiful, Tobias was nervous, but steady. And when they spoke their vows, she paused, her smile widening. When they spoke their vows, you could feel the love in the room. It was almost tangible, like heat from a fire. I'm glad to hear it. But that is not the only reason I stopped. Lydia reached into her satchel and withdrew a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Elena asked me to bring you this. A wedding gift, she said. Though she would not explain what it was, she only said that you would understand. I took the bundle and unwrapped it carefully, unsure what to expect. Inside the cloth, I found a small wooden box, intricately carved with patterns of leaves and vines and birds in flight. The workmanship was exquisite. The detail so fine that each feather, each leaf vein, each tendril of vine was individually rendered. Tobias's work, I realized. The wood carver had made this. Inside the box, nestled on a bed of silk, was a single ring, not gold or silver, but wood, pale and smooth and warm to the touch, carved from a piece of oak that still carried the faint scent of growing things. There was a note tucked beneath the ring, written in Elena's careful hand. For the keeper of the Crossroads, in thanks for everything. This ring was carved from a branch that fell from your oak tree during our stay. A gift from the tree to you through our hands. May it remind you that you are part of this place, not just its guardian. You belong to the Crossroads as surely as it belongs to you. With love and gratitude, Elena and Tobias. I held the ring up to the light, examining its delicate construction. The grain of the wood swirled in patterns that almost seemed intentional, as if the tree had grown this specific piece for this specific purpose. When I slipped it onto my finger, it fit perfectly, warm and smooth and somehow right. I did not know about the ring, Lydia said, watching me with curiosity, but I could tell it was important. The way they wrapped it, the way Elena spoke about it, there was reverence in her voice. It is beautiful, I said, still turning the ring on my finger, and more meaningful than she could know. We talked for a while longer, sharing observations about the wedding and the wedding party and the strange providence that had brought them all to the Crossroads. Lydia had her own theories about the rings in the tree hollow. She was a practical woman, and she suspected that a raven or squirrel had found the golden ring shining in the boy's window and carried them off to a cache, only for that cache to happen to be in the oak tree. I did not argue with her interpretation. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps the explanation was entirely natural, entirely explicable, entirely mundane. But I had been keeper of the Crossroads for many years, and I had learned that the most interesting explanations are rarely the simplest ones. Lydia departed as the sun began to set, continuing her journey back to wherever her duties called. I watched her ride away, a solitary figure on a patient horse, growing smaller and smaller until the road swallowed her entirely. Then I returned to the oak tree, my new ring warm on my finger, and I sat beneath its branches as the twilight deepened into night. "Thank you," I said to the tree, to the crossroads, to whatever forces watched over this place, for bringing them here, for whatever you did to help them, for this gift. The tree did not respond, of course, but one of its lower branches swayed slightly, brushing against my shoulder with a touch that felt almost intentional. I sat there for a long time, watching the stars emerge one by one, listening to the night sounds of the crossroads, the distant call of owls, the rustle of small creatures in the underbrush, the whisper of wind through leaves that seemed almost like voices, speaking words just beyond the edge of understanding. The white candle burned in the window of the inn behind me, a beacon in the darkness, a promise to any traveler who might be approaching that rest and warmth awaited them. And on my finger, a ring carved from oak, a reminder that I was part of this place, not just its keeper, but its child. The 24th day of May. Today I received a letter. Letters are not uncommon at the crossroads. Travelers often leave messages to be delivered to those who will pass through later, and couriers sometimes drop off correspondence that has been circulating through the road networks for weeks or months. But this letter was different. It bore no return address, no sender's name, no indication of where it had come from or how it had arrived. I found it on the doorstep when I opened the inn for the morning, a single envelope, cream-colored and slightly worn, as if it had traveled a great distance before reaching me. My name was written on the front in handwriting I did not recognize, and beneath it, a single line: "To be opened on the day it arrives." Inside the envelope, I found a piece of paper covered in the same unfamiliar hand. The message was brief: "Keeper of the crossroads, you have done well." The wedding party was a test. Though they did not know it, and you did not know it, the oak tree was watching. The spirits of the crossroads were watching, and what they saw pleased them. A marriage is a crossroads of its own, a meeting point where two paths become one. To help such a meeting unfold as it should, to provide shelter and wisdom at the moment when the both are needed, is a sacred task. You performed it admirably. The ring you have been given is more than a gift. It is a key, though I will not tell you what it unlocks or when or how. You will discover that for yourself when the time is right. Keep the faith, keeper. Keep the fire burning. Keep welcoming those who arrive at your door. The crossroads is in good hands. There was no signature, no indication of who had written the letter or how they knew about the wedding party and the ring. I read it 3 times, searching for clues, but found nothing that illuminated its origin. A test, the letter said. The wedding party had been a test. I thought about that as I went about my day, turning the idea over in my mind. A test of what? My hospitality, my wisdom, my ability to help strangers navigate their troubles. I had done nothing extraordinary during the wedding party's stay, nothing that I would not have done for any travelers who needed my help. But perhaps that was the point. Perhaps the test was not about doing something extraordinary, but about doing ordinary things well, about welcoming strangers with warmth, about providing comfort and counsel when asked, and about trusting the magic of the crossroads to do its work without trying to control or direct it. The ring on my finger seemed to pulse faintly as I thought about this. Or perhaps that was my imagination. Either way, I found myself touching it often throughout the day, running my thumb over its smooth surface, feeling the warmth of the oak wood against my skin. A key, the letter had said. But a key to what? I did not know, and I suspected I would not know for some time. The crossroads reveals its secrets slowly, unfolding them over years and decades rather than hours or days. I had learned to be patient with its mysteries, to trust that understanding would come when I was ready to receive it. In the meantime, I had work to do. The inn would not run itself, and there were travelers who might need it before the day was done. I tucked the letter into my journal, where I keep all the strange and unexplained things that have accumulated over my years as keeper. Then I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. The evening brought a pair of travelers, a young couple, not unlike Tobias and Elena, heading east to start a new life in the coastal towns. They were nervous and excited and full of questions about the road ahead, and I answered them as best I could, drawing on my years of observation to give them practical advice about the journey they faced. They stayed only one night, departing with the dawn the next morning, but before they'd left, the woman, her name was Sarah, noticed the ring on my finger. "That is beautiful," she said. "I have never seen oak carved so finely. Where did you get it?" I told her the story, an abbreviated version, leaving out the more mystical elements, and watched her face light up with interest and appreciation. "You are lucky," she said, "to have guests who care enough to give such a gift. It says something about this place, about you." I thought about her words long after they departed, wondering what it was about the crossroads that inspired such connections. Was it the thin place, the boundary between worlds that Vera had spoken of? Was it the oak tree, with its accumulated prayers and blessings? Was it simply the nature of travelers, people far from home, open to connection in ways they might not be in their everyday lives? Or was it me? Had I become, over the years, the kind of person who invited trust and inspired gift? I did not know, but I found that the question mattered less than I had expected. What mattered was the connections themselves, the brief entanglements with travelers' lives, the stories I witnessed, the small ways I was able to help. The ring on my finger caught the firelight as I wrote in my journal that evening, its surface gleaming like something alive. A key, I thought again. A key to something I do not yet understand, but I would learn. In time, I would learn. The crossroads would teach me, as it had been teaching me for all these years. All I had to do was pay attention, keep the fire burning, and welcome whoever arrived at my door. The 25th day of May. Spring is deepening towards summer now. The apple blossoms have given way to small green fruits, promising a good harvest if the weather holds. The kitchen garden is thriving, the rows of vegetables growing taller each day, and I have begun to plan the summer preserving that will keep the inn supplied through the leaner months ahead. The wedding party feels like a dream now, vivid in memory but somehow distant, as if it happened in another life. I find myself looking at the pale blue ribbon in the oak tree and remembering Elena's face, Tobias's nervous smile, old Vera's knowing eyes. I remember the crisis of the lost rings and the miracle of their recovery. I remember Cedric's confession and Marguerite's transformation and young Finn's mischievous curiosity. They are gone now, off to live their lives in places I will probably never see. But they left something behind at the crossroads, memories, wishes, a ribbon tied to an ancient branch, and I carry something of them with me too. The ring on my finger, the letter in my journal, the warmth of their presence still lingering in the corners of the inn. This is the way of things at the crossroads. People arrive, stay for a time, and move on. Their stories intersect with mine briefly, like threads, crossing in a tapestry, and then they continue on their separate ways. I'm left with the memories and the records I keep in my journal. These candlelit pages where I try to capture something of the human drama that unfolds around me. Some might find this life lonely, and there are moments, quiet evenings when no travelers come, long winter nights when the only sound is the wind against the shutters, when loneliness does visit me like an old acquaintance. But mostly, I feel something else, a sense of purpose, of belonging, of being exactly where I'm meant to be. The crossroads needs a keeper, someone to maintain the inn, to tend the fire, to welcome the weary and the lost. Someone to watch over this thin place where the boundaries grow permeable and strange things can happen. Someone to witness the stories that unfold here and record them for whom? For posterity, perhaps, for myself, for the spirits of the crossroads who seem to care in their strange way about what happens at this intersection of roads and lives. I have been that keeper for many years now. I inherited the role from my father, who built this inn with his own hands and his neighbor's help, who established the traditions I so maintain, who taught me what it means to offer hospitality to strangers in a world that is often cold and indifferent. And someday, perhaps, I will pass the role to someone else. The crossroads will find its next keeper, as it found me, as it found my father before me. The fire will continue to burn, the white candle will continue to glow, the oak tree will continue to collect the prayers of travelers. But that day is not today. Today, I am here, wearing my ring of oak wood, writing in my journal by candlelight, grateful for the gift of another day at the place where the roads meet. Tonight, the sky is clear, and the stars shine bright enough to cast shadows. The moon is nearly full, hanging low over the eastern hills, painting the landscape in silver and shadow. If any travelers are on the road, they will have light enough to find their way. And if they need rest, they will find it here. The Crossroads Inn is ready, as it is always ready. The fire is banked, but can be quickly revived. The beds are made, the larder is stocked, the door is unlocked for whoever might need to enter. Welcome, I think, to anyone who might be approaching. Welcome to the Crossroads. Welcome to this place of rest and healing and strange magic. Welcome to my home. The white candle on the mantel flickers once, a gentle acknowledgement, a sign that my words have been heard. Then it returns to a steady, unwavering burn, a beacon in the window for all the travelers yet to come.
And so we leave the Crossroads Inn, where a wedding party has come and gone, where rings were lost and found by the ancient oak, where a family healed the rifts that threatened to divide them. The innkeeper writes by candlelight, wearing a ring carved from oak wood, pondering the mysteries of the thin place he tends. Summer approaches, and with it new travelers, new stories, new chances for connection and healing. If you found peace in these pages, consider sharing this story with someone who might need it. Subscribe to the Candlelit Journal to return whenever you need a moment of rest at the Crossroads Inn. Until we meet again, may your roads be safe, your rest be deep, and your heart be full. Good night.